And thank you. We are so excited that we are going to be moving forward with the established 1619 pilgrimage that really began with an idea, a conversation that I had with Pastor Moss. He called and said, I heard you do pilgrimages. Would you be interested in leading TUCC it through a pilgrimage in Charleston? And actually it was a pilgrimage through the story of our entry, our rebellion and resistance, and our rise. And that, my friends, is what we have done. We have custom designed a pilgrimage for the Trinity UCC community and friends who are coming along with us. It began, we were supposed to be on this pilgrimage last year, but COVID. And so this year we said, do we still want to do this? And all hands said yes. And so, yes, we still want to do this. We are doing this. And we have an amazing team that we have gathered to facilitate the journey through that story. So without further ado, let me just jump into the conversation. My name is Lisa Sharon Harper. I'm the executive director, president, founder of Freedom Road. And here is Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, who is with us. And he will actually introduce this whole process and what it is that we are doing here tonight. Reverend Moss. Reverend Moss, can you hear us? You are muted.
Webinar, not as a panelist, and I was trying to get on. Okay,
there you go.
Okay.
There you go. So would you introduce for your congregation, what is it that led you to believe we should do this? This is a pilgrimage that we need at TUCC.
Well, we've been doing these pilgrimage journeys of faith and hope and heritage for quite some time at Trinity United Church of Christ. And we want to continue that. Many of those were outside of the U.S., but one of the important pieces as we were approaching this 400-year moment to look at how did we get here? The 1619 Project. Yes, the 1619 Project, which is a wonderful, wonderful project led by Nicole Hannah-Jones. And we thought that South Carolina, since the majority of people of African descent landed in South Carolina, Charleston to be specific. And then on top of that, you still have so many African retentions, specifically in South Carolina, Gullah culture, Gullah food, in terms of the resistance and faith. So if you want to look at slave resistance and revolts, you're back in South Carolina. You want to understand the slave codes, the black codes, you're back in South Carolina. When you want to look at a state that was at one point majority Black, and they were fearful that it would become a separate nation, you're back in South Carolina again. So South Carolina has a rich heritage. It has a rich heritage in reference to African people. And when you look at the landscape of the topography of South Carolina and the topography of West Africa, they are almost identical. So when people landed in the United States, they thought it was a cruel joke. They're like, oh, they took us back home, not realizing that they were landing in this peculiar and strange new world that was called America.
Wow. And I know, just even from my own family's research, so much. Isn't it the case that 60% of all African Americans can trace their ancestry through that entry port in Charleston? So that was another reason why we are so drawn to this land, because so many of us can trace our history right back to that land in particular. That's our Genesis moment as African Americans.
No, it's really powerful when you begin to look at the history in relationship to South Carolina. And the International African American History Museum is now located in South Carolina. Why? Because it is the space that they're creating the records so that you'll be able to trace your ancestry, find out more about your ancestry. So they are working hard that 50 years from now, this will be the place where our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will go to find out about our forebears like Fortune. I might mention Lisa Sharon Harper's ancestor, who she is writing about in a new book that is coming out very soon that everybody needs to
That's the book
purchase.
right there.
Oh, you got it. Okay, there it is. Yes.
That's the
Okay.
mock-up. It's a mock-up
Okay.
of the book. So yeah, there you go. So, well, thank you so much. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III. I am interested to share about Freedom Road, our philosophy, our structure. What is a pilgrimage in our care? What do we want to accomplish in that time? I want to direct everyone, if you have not visited our website, make sure you do. It's at freedomroad.us. freedomroad.us. Now, what I want to do now is I want to share my screen with you and kind of move us through kind of the story of how we even came to do pilgrimages. So, and what will this pilgrimage entail? So let's begin here. Thank you so much, Pastor Moss. Okay, so this is the Freedom Road website. You can find it at freedomroad.us. And you'll see that we consult, coach, train, and design experiences and help groups in multiple sectors to do justice in just ways. That's what we exist to do. And so we have, you can always, of course, join the email list, but our strategy is that we believe that in order to move justice forward in our nation, we must address the gap between the narratives that are woven into our history, what we have been told, what we've been taught about who we are and how we got here. And so there are two primary narratives in America that are really in tension with each other, and we see them in every election now the last several years. There is the narrative that America was once great and we have to get back to that. And there is the narrative that no, we need to strive to become a more perfect union. These are the two central narratives that really guide American politics. And by politics, I don't mean partisanship, although it has actually broken down that way recently. What I mean is the decisions that we make about how we will live together in the world. They are guided and shaped by these two narratives. And these narratives have a gap between them. And that gap is the truth. That gap is the truth. And that's our goal, is to shrink the narrative gap so that we can actually make progress, because more people have been exposed to the truth of what actually happened and how we actually got here. And that is not only for the sake of people of European descent or non-African American descent, but the truth is we rise as a people when we understand who we are and how we got here. I know you know this as members of TUCC. Y'all are some of the most enlightened people on the planet, I swear. I know this to be true. And part of that is because you are so committed to pilgrimage. But that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this one in particular, because we are going to be on our own land, uncovering stories that we may not have heard before and nuance that we may not have understood before. We believe narrative shapes worldview, and as a result, it shapes the world. So we design forums and experiences that build common understanding, common commitment, and common action, and it leads to a more just world. So I want to now flip to the 7 pillars of Freedom Road pilgrimages. There are 7 pillars to our pilgrimages. We are always story-based. In other words, our pilgrimages always roll through a story, a cohesive story of a people group. It has a beginning, a middle, and a right now. And they usually lead to action, some kind of either change in the way that we live our lives, or even political action. It centers the perspective of the oppressed. So that we are always going to be seeking storytellers along the road who actually have connection to the land and to the people, people's story whom we are actually viewing and becoming familiar with. It centers the biblical concept of shalom, that concept that is about the radical wellness of all in creation and all of God's creation. And we invest deeply in spiritual formation. We leverage talking circle or listening circles, or another way to put that. Talking circles are an Indigenous deliberation forum where participants share their stories from the heart one by one, offering and receiving each other's stories as gifts. Freedom Road leverages the power of talking circles, and we've come to actually talk about them as listening circles more, because quite honestly, you're doing more listening there than you are talking. And this helps us to aid the process of information integration and community building on the pilgrimage. We're also committed to diversity. So this will be a diverse gathering, as diverse as TUCC's congregation and the friends that join us along the way. And by diversity, we've actually committed that at least 60% of the people on this pilgrimage will be people of color. Psychological trauma management, another way we've come to put that is actually coping and resilience. So we will have 3 clinical psychologists who are with us, who are going to help us to make sure that the information is integrated from the beginning all the way through the end, and so that you have tools that you can take home so that we don't get a week out and either forgotten information or just not know how to integrate it into your daily life and worldview. Finally, I want to share with you the story that we're going to be traveling through. We will be traveling through the story. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick in order to share this with you. We will be traveling through the story of the entry, the rebellion and resistance, and the rising of people of African descent on US soil. This is a story that will take us 3 days to travel through. Plus, we will have an entry day ourselves where we all fly in, and we will have an exit day where we debrief and then fly out. We will be on buses together. We will be listening and watching videos in order to understand the context within which we are about to walk. We will be talking directly to people who have either descendants of people we will be talking about, or who are experts from the community that we will be talking with. We will be eating Gullah food. We're going to have a church, a Gullah church is actually volunteered to cater one of our dinners. And so we were going to be eating Gullah food on the beach, I believe, or near the beach, down in the Charleston area. We will be standing on the land where major events happened that shaped American history and African American history in particular. Each bus will have a team of 4 people who are leading that bus. Each bus will have a lead storyteller who is responsible for making sure that that bus is getting the story. Each bus will have a logistics person who's responsible for making sure everybody gets from A to Z. Each bus will have someone who is in charge of spiritual direction and formation, making sure that our spirits are well in the midst of this time. And each person will have a coping and resilience specialist, a clinical psychologist who is helping, and actually will have an opportunity to do one-on-ones with people as they desire it. We believe the goal of this pilgrimage is twofold. For people of African descent, it is to immerse ourselves in our own story, to bridge the gap between the narratives that we've been told and what actually happened, to understand our soul power and genius anew, and learn from our ancestors what we need for the journey ahead. And for those who are not of African descent who will be with us, the goal for you is to immerse yourself in the story of the other, to bridge the gap between what you were told and taught and what actually happened, to come to a deeper understanding, a body understanding, and an appreciation for African American contributions to American democracy. Finally, I want to review our registration page, which you can find on our website. And I'm going to, again, share our screen. So let's do that quickly. Here we go. And so this is the registration page on the website. Again, you can find it at freedomroad.us/1619-pilgrimage. So history, hidden truth, and our journey toward Jubilee. That is our subtitle for the pilgrimage. It's taking place June 20 through 24, 2022. So we have a good year actually to prepare and to save for it and to get our friends on board. Actually, about 6 months to get your friends on board. So those are the dates. The cost is $21.64. The price may vary slightly based on time of registration and the current flight costs at the time of registration. So flights, that will include flights to and from Charleston, South Carolina, ground travel to and from the airport, and also throughout the duration of the journey, hotels, welcome dinner and the Tuesday night dinner, all lunches, all breakfasts, museums, and site visits. It'll include storytelling through the lenses of museums, experts, descendants, and witnesses of oppression. It will include the listening circles, spiritual formation, historical sites, and time with the Gullah people and the culture. So you see, and I think we already said to be at the very top, the flights. So you see a lot is wrapped up into that fee. A basic schedule overview is that we'll be checking into our hotels by 5 p.m. on Monday, having dinner and conversations, and launching our conversation over dinner on Monday night. Tuesday is when we really launch. We have our orientation for the morning. Then we'll be jumping into the bus and we'll be going to sites. We're going to end that dinner and end that day with the Gullah people, I believe on or near the beach, eating Gullah food. That's gonna be a fabulous first day. Then every night we'll end with listening circles where each bus will actually then break down into several smaller groups, giving everybody an opportunity to process the day and process what is it that you learned, what sticks out about the day, what are the questions that are still looming, what are the ahas that have clicked for you. Wednesday, the schedule will go very similarly throughout the rest of the days, but Wednesday is going to be a really interesting day because the buses will be cycling through various sites that we'll be all going to, but in different times. And then we'll be coming back, and dinner will be on your own on Wednesday and on Thursday. On Thursday, we will all be in the same place. So we won't have our buses cycling, but rather going to the Penn Center, and we'll be enjoying particular sites there. So everybody will be there for most of the day and then coming back. And we'll also have an opportunity on Thursday to talk with some experts. And we believe we're right now solidifying our conversation with the African American Museum and talking particularly about genealogy and how you can do that, how you can actually engage in genealogy for yourself. And what Pastor Musk was referring to about my book, Fortune, is actually exactly that. I've been working on my family's genealogy for 30 years, and where we've been able to go back 10 generations to 1682, as early as 1682. And our family does have intersection with South Carolina, although not Charleston, but up into Camden and Columbus area. So I'm excited to go back, and my mom is coming, and we're going to actually be going to Camden, South Carolina after the pilgrimage in order to continue our pilgrimage a little further. But so that is the schedule. So how do you register? The registration deadline is December 15th, but we want to encourage you to register now. Register as soon as possible. There are 3 possible payment structures that you can engage in. The first is you can make monthly payments via check or credit card. And monthly payment amounts are going to vary based on the date that you register, right? So if you have 10 months to pay, the payments will be stretched out one way. If you register in December, you're only going to have 6 months to pay, and actually less than 6 months, because I think everything has to be in by the end of April or mid-April. So option 2 is to do 3 payments, one upon registration, one November 10th, and the last one March 10th. And of course, that again varies if you're registering in November The first and second payment will be charged upon registration, and then the third will be in March. Option 3 is just to put it all down on that credit card, which is what I think a lot of people actually are planning to do. Just put it all down on the credit card, have done with it, and then make your payments to and through your credit card, or through a check. So all payments are due by March 10th of 2022, and there will be no exceptions. So that is just simply, that is the deadline, because that is the deadline we need to have in order to be able to release rooms if people are not going to be coming. So that is all the information. That's logistics and everything else. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Pastor Moss, do you have any questions? Let's start with you, or anything that you are excited about as you think about this journey that your church is going to be going on. And then we can go to Q&A from the group. And I want to invite you again, if you have questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom, not the chat, because I'm sure there's a lot of chitter chat happening in the chat. It's going to be hard to follow. So please use the Q&A box in the bottom, and I'll be able to see that.
Well, we had some questions, inquiries from some people in reference to one, dietary issues, and if you were differently abled.
Very good. Okay. So we are, this is the kind of, there's two different things. First of all, dietary. We are making allowances for allowances. We are preparing, that's not the way to put it. We are preparing for not every eventuality. That would be a little bit difficult with 100 and some people, but we definitely are preparing for vegan and vegetarian meals, gluten-free meals. And if there are special needs, then you can, of course, let us know about them. And the question about whether or not we'll be able to accommodate them will really depend on the restaurants and the catering that we're going to be using, whether or not they have that capacity. But we will let you know. But we do appreciate you reaching out and asking if you have special accommodations. In terms of disability, that's a great question. And there's lots of different kinds of disability. There's hearing impairment, there's vision impairment, and there's also body disability. I think that having now gone on many, many pilgrimages, knowing that we're going to be sitting on a bus for much of this, we have contracted our bus companies to be able to accommodate wheelchairs. And we want to encourage you to bring your wheelchair if you need it. We want to encourage you to come. Do not let your wheelchair make you not come. Also understand that we'll be running over terrain that is not always paved. So if we're on the beach, that kind of thing. So you need to be prepared for that. And we will most likely have, especially because we'll be in places that have old housing structures sometimes that may not have, they may not be ADA compliant, but I don't think that that's a lot. We've actually done a lot of work to try to make sure that everything is ADA compliant, but there's a possibility because of the historic nature of the structures we're going into. So I want to make you aware of that. In terms of stamina, I just think that you need to, if you're planning to walk this in terms of when you get off the bus, you're going to be walking, know that we're going to be doing some walking, especially when we're at the Penn Center, there'll be quite a bit of walking. You should prepare. If you can do a 5K, you're going to do well. You can walk a 5K, you will do well, okay? And that means you got to start training now. Get out and start doing your walking. If you can walk a 5K, you will do well. If you strain to walk a 5K, you might be frustrated. You might actually encounter some frustration. And the reason for that is because the nature of pilgrimage is movement. And we will have the buses. We will have the buses. We will be able to actually move people who are not able to walk, and that's okay. But I just that's the work we've been doing up to this point. Is that clear, Pastor Moss? Okay.
That works, yes. I think that answers the question, yes.
Okay, just think 5K. Think 5K. Okay. All right, so, okay, good questions are coming in. Very good. Okay, so Deborah Madden asks, how do we find out about the land-only cost of the trip? Very good. how you find out about that is you contact Wendy, and let me just get her information for you. And I think actually, Katie, could you answer that question? Katie Zimmerman is our logistics director for the trip. Katie, would you be able to answer that question about land only cost while I get Wendy's contact information?
Yes, hi everyone. So that is the right answer. Wendy, we've been working with a travel agency because this is such a large group. And so Wendy is the go-to for hotels, registration questions, also to address the food restrictions. That is a part of the registration. That's one of the places where you can let us know if you had food needs or special requests. So Wendy is our go-to for land-only travel questions. And then I'm also seeing in the chat a question about double occupancy, and if you would like to travel alone. That would also be a question for Wendy of if there's an option to have a single room, which may affect the cost of the trip.
Yeah, I will say a single room will affect the cost of your trip. The trip has been priced with the assumption of double occupancy in a room.
And
Okay,
Lisa, just
so-
for context, could you also explain why, some of the reasons why we choose to do a double occupancy beyond logistics?
That's actually really good. Thank you so much, Katie. So we have, that is an actual strategic choice. We are very much invested in community, the development of the bus community. And as much as we are invested in the going to see the sites. This has to do with the difference between a trip, a tour, and a pilgrimage. So let me explain that. That's one thing I didn't go through. There is a difference between a trip, a tour, and a pilgrimage. A trip is all about the great pictures that you get on the trip. You know, I got a picture pushing back the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? I got a picture, you know, skiing with the water jet. That's, I mean, we have a funny picture in front of this or that. That's a trip. A tour is all about what you learn at the site that you're going to. So we're going to do this tour in order to learn this, in order to learn that, in order to learn that. But a pilgrimage is actually about the entire experience. And it's mostly about the in-between. You do the tour, you're going to get the fun pictures. But it's that in-between time. It's the time on the bus. It's a time talking with your roommate late at night as you're processing information. It's a time over dinner. It's that time when we are changed. You can think of a pilgrimage as kind of a transformational cocoon experience where you are placing yourself in a space where you know that you are not going to come out the same as you went in. And we believe that it is that roommate experience that actually helps that to happen. Now, if you want to go with a friend and you guys want to room together, or you're a married couple or a family, you can absolutely room. We're not going to force you apart, but we are going to pair people randomly, although obviously same gender, unless you ask us if you want to pair with a specific person, because we believe that that community is going to be built in that in-between as much as the processing happens there. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Will the pilgrimage sell out, or will you take people to the very end? I'm not sure what that means, Michael Woods. Will the pilgrimage sell out? Or, oh, I see what you're saying. The deadline is December. That is necessary. So our goal is at least 125 people. Our minimum that we really want to reach is at least 125. We could go as high as 250. We could go as high as 250. We would have to actually get a few more team members to do that, but we can do that. But we need to know that by December. After December, we will not be taking anyone else. And the deadline cutoff date is on the website. So thank you for that question, Michael Woods. Sharon says, Ms. Harper, is there a plan B regarding COVID? Should there be lockdown or limitations due to the beta variant? That's a great question. The plan B, I'll tell you what, we're on plan C right now. We're on plan C. We were going to do this last year. We were going to do that this year, but then we realized this year was not the time. And so we've now moved it to 2022. Plan B will be to assess again and to move it again if we have to. But that's the plan. I hope that that's helpful. We will always be watching the COVID, but the reality is that by then, we believe that enough people will be vaccinated. Vaccinations are working so that even if someone does get COVID, it's not severe. People do not end up in or haven't been ending up in the hospital from COVID once vaccinated. It is the case that if you are on the pilgrimage, we will require you to be vaccinated. There is no one who will be on that pilgrimage who is not vaccinated. So I hope that that's helpful. Hello, one. What is the age limit? Great question, Linda. Thank you so much. And then I would like to bring my 9-year-old. So 9-year-old, very welcome. In fact, let me just say the very first pilgrimage that I ever went on, the youngest person on the bus, and this was a 1-month pilgrimage through the entire South. The youngest person on the bus was 6 months old. And then we also had a cadre of kids who were on the bus, and they were the greatest delight. In fact, one of the things I remember most about that pilgrimage was the community of children. So we're encouraging families, bring your kids. Now, the one thing you need to know is that we're not going to have a child's bus. We're not going to have child care. So if you do bring your child, you will be responsible for their care in the same way that you would if you went on vacation. You will be responsible for their care. But we want to encourage that because we believe that children should be fully integrated into the community, not segregated into their own thing. They can think, they can process as well. And when we did our pilgrimage with those kids on the bus, they were in our listening circles. They listened to it all. They participated in it all as well. So how would flights work? That's a Wendy question. I want you to call Wendy and let her know. Who do I work with to arrange the flight? So the flight is all a part of the registration. That question is a part of the registration. And if you're not based in Chicago, you would work that out with Wendy. Okay, so give her a call or email her, and you'll be set there. I think there's another one here. I have family members who reside in Charleston and might want to participate. Is this possible? Absolutely, that's possible. Anybody can participate. Your Charleston family members just would not, you would get the non-flight registration level. So they just wouldn't be paying for their flight, but they also would not be able to just simply reside at home. They would have to live with us for those 3 days or 5 days total, including fly in and fly out days. They would have to travel with us on the bus and not go back and forth to their homes because, like I said, it's like a cocoon, and we want to build community as much as we are building a transformational space. That community is really important. So if they are willing to do that, to be a part of this whole experience with us, then we completely welcome it. Deacon Dion P. Fleming says, I'm hearing impaired and use hearing aids. Never mind, you're talking about it now. Deacon, thank you so much. My mom is hearing impaired as well, and she also uses hearing aids. And yes, we want you to come. Please come, and please bring your hearing aids. Make sure you're wearing them as well. I know that that's an issue sometimes, not for you, but for many people. But I think that actually that would be fine, and we'll make sure that we have captions on the videos. So we're being aware of those as we possibly can. I'm preparing for it. What hotel will we be staying in? Katie, do you have that information? What hotel? What hotel will we be staying in?
Yes, I do. Let me pull it up.
And meanwhile, I have another question. Who do we pay directly? You'll be paying Wendy Bartnick directly. She's our travel agent. And I'm coming from Hawaii. Hey, welcome, Hawaii. Can I get a rate from Hawaii to South Carolina? Talk to Wendy. She's the person to talk to there. So just email Wendy. Ms. D says, will any of the meals be boxed? Yes, we will have boxed lunches that will be loading onto the bus and serving at different times, or serving at lunchtime on each bus. But aside from that, no other meals will be boxed. You'll have breakfast at the hotel, boxed lunch, and then dinner will be on your own for 2 nights. One night will be the gullah meal, and the first night will actually be a dinner together in the ballroom. Pastor Moss, did you have a question or thought? You're good? All right, so last question. What financial obligation is required at the time of registration? That's a Katie question.
I'm catching up. I'm not used to all these webinars. Really quick, the hotel question. We'll be staying at the Hampton Inn in Charleston, which was a brand new hotel under construction 2 years ago when we first started this. So a brand new hotel. And then I'm sorry, Lisa, can you repeat?
What's the down payment? What's the registration down payment requirement?
Yes, so $200 is due when you turn in your registration form.
That's great. Okay, I think I got through all the questions. Is that right? I think I did. Did I miss any? Let's see. How do we find out about the land only cost of the trip? That's a Wendy question. So again, email Wendy. I placed her email address in the chat, so you can look at the chat. It's wbartnick@burkhaltertravel.com. Okay. Are there any other questions that anyone has, or thoughts as well? Pastor Moss, what are you most looking forward to?
That's a great question. I'm just looking forward to being in the state of South Carolina again. I'm excited about visiting the Gullah community once again. I'm truly excited about being at Mother Emanuel. And I'm excited about the food.
I know.
So I am a great lover of South Carolina cuisine, and after seeing High on the Hog,
Yes.
I really want some South Carolina food.
Yes. I saw that too. I'd say I saw it with my mom, and we both literally wept at the end of the first, really at the end of the whole thing, and really at the end of almost every episode. I'm most excited because of High on the Hog. I'm most excited about seeing how the innovations that the Gullah people retained from Africa and brought here, not only definitely in food, but also in other ways. I'm excited about seeing how those innovations actually have been filtered into the fabric of what we now call America. But it was us who did that. You know what I mean? It was our genius that did that. And I'm also excited about gleaning from the soul power of our ancestors. You know, I've been right? Like doing some research about the depth of the oppression that they went through. And I don't think we really understand it. I don't think we get it. So it took something to rebel, to still believe it, to believe something could be different, and to resist in the middle of a nation where the law was that you could be enslaved and should be. I mean, that, you know, like
it really is mind-boggling. South Carolina, for people who may not know, you could say that it is not the cradle of the Confederacy, but the cradle of Black resistance.
Yes.
Because there's just, at every turn, there is organizing, and let me lay this out. There's organizing by faithful people of African descent.
Mhm.
The idea that faith and resistance are polar opposites historically shows that that's not the case, and South Carolina speaks to it over and over again.
Mm.
That there's a wonderful book, Wrestling Jacob,
Mm.
where they tell the story of a white preacher standing in a praise house. Those are the
Mm.
praise houses that the Gullah people would worship in. And he was trying to quote, slaves be obedient to their masters. And an elder woman says, I don't believe that. She stands up in worship,
Oh
and
my
they
God.
begin to walk out. They begin to walk, and the quote missionaries were always having trouble with South Carolinians because they knew the Bible intuitively better than the missionaries. Not
Wow.
quote, but they said, no, that's not right. They would question. And so then you have, the Gabriel processors, you have the Morris Browns, you have the Emmanuel AME was a part of this resistance. And my all-time favorite, I want to say this is what I'm looking forward to. I have a deep love for a person by the name of Robert Smalls.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just want to
Yes.
stand in the place where it was the greatest American heist ever. It was better than Ocean's 11, where they stole a Confederate warship to sail
Yes.
to freedom. They did it in Charleston, South Carolina. And he did it to, to set his entire family free.
Mm.
Robert and Hannah plotted together with 11 other Africans to say, we about to do this thing so our children can live a different life.
What? So come, be with us on the bus, roll with us through these stories, through our story, through our American story, quite honestly. This is what made America, America, this story. And let yourself be transformed. Let yourself have an experience with God on that bus. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for all your really great questions. I actually see that there might be one more question that was added to the pile here. To Reverend Moss, is it possible to have a bus at Trinity to take us to the airport? All right,
That's
so
someone
you,
from
you
Trinity.
went,
That's
took
a
us from
Trinity question.
Distical,
That is
Janice.
such a, ask the pastors, are we gonna have a bus now, Pastor?
Okay, we'll tell you what, y'all can work that
We'll
out.
look into that. I'm not sure if we could do that.
That is so great. Thank you, Janice. Thank you for that. Awesome. Well, everybody, again, thank you so much for coming. We cannot wait to be with you, and we can't wait to be transformed with you. Every single time I go on pilgrimage, I am transformed, and I am made richer by the experience. I hope you come with us. I hope you find a way. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Wendy really is the best first contact because she has most of the logistical questions. If you have other questions, more like content questions, you can direct them to me at lisa@freedomroad.us. Okay, lisa@freedomroad.us. Don't come to me with no logistical questions because that's not me.
And let me repeat that. Repeat that again, because don't send it to me. Send it to
That's right.
Freedom
And don't
Road.
send questions to Pastor Moss either,
That's
right? Like he will be like, I don't know. And I will too. Well, I won't be saying, I'll be saying, go to talk to Wendy. So Wendy is your logistical question person. And also Katie, if Wendy doesn't have the answer, Katie would, although honestly, they're kind of like that. And then me for the content. Do you have a content question in terms of the story we're going to be rolling through? That's the question you come to me with, okay? All right. Well, God bless you. We look forward to seeing you in about a year when we all get on this bus and we all have our own transformational experience. Until then, God bless you. Bye-bye.